Welcome to Build and Scale with Devika. I'm your host, Ken. Today we're talking to Shelley, a founder who has built Australia's largest ground handling business and also one of the most successful tech companies in Australia. And we'll dive into his journey from airports to apps and explore three key areas: how Steve spotted an operational pain point within AeroCare and turned it into the idea that became Deputy, a tech unicorn worth over $1 billion. What it was like scaling a SaaS company as a non-technical founder, including the capital growth and leadership decisions that define the journey, and why he's now combining his passion for motorsport with his playbook for tech scale, and how Devika helped him bring the OneRacer platform to life. If you're a founder looking to scale smarter, whether through product, people, or platforms, this episode is packed with lessons that you will not find on social media. Give us a snapshot of what your entrepreneur journey has been like.
My name is Steve Shelley, and I am the proud owner of One Raceway down here in Goulburn, New South Wales, Australia. Also the founder or co-founder, if you like, of Deputy.com and the founder of AeroCare, very significant aviation business in Australia. Previous to that, I started life making soft drinks for the family soft drink business called Burt's Soft Drinks, which was from the heritage of the Shelley's soft drink businesses in here in New South Wales.
Fascinating. So how did you go from, I guess, drinks to aeroplanes?
Well, my wife at the time was pregnant with my first child, and I was looking around for something else to do to supplement the fact that she was coming out of the work environment. And I was wondering, what can I do that's actually lucrative? And working for the family soft drink business for 12 years, the only thing that I could really see which was lucrative was either transport or aviation. That was the sort of the lens that I was looking through. And when I worked out that aviation was probably quite a lucrative industry, I actually headed out to the airport and scoured looking for opportunities and found a couple and started washing airplanes. That was back in 1992. I literally was washing airplanes, and being on the airport, opportunities came up, and I learnt the art of saying yes. And anybody came to me and said, "Can you do something for me?" I would just say yes, and then just work out a way of making it happen.
Does anything come to mind when you said yes and you're like, I probably should have said no?
Yeah. Well, there were certain things that happened that allowed me to scale the business from just myself to 2 people, and then 4 and 6 and 8. Before you knew it, I had about 10 or 15 people working for me, doing all sorts of providing all sorts of services out the airport for small airline operations. Loading and unloading and baggage and cleaning and freight. And somebody who became a dear friend of mine, a guy called Wally Meyer, actually approached me one day and said that he was the operations manager for DHL Worldwide Express. And he asked me if it was something that we might be able to help out with handling the 727 aircraft. And of course I said yes. I didn't know what I was doing at all, but probably one of the attributes that I've got is I've got a fairly good dose of common sense and just work things out, and worked out a way of, bringing together a team that could handle this 727 for DHL Worldwide Express. And initially it was very confronting, but over time we worked out some really good systems, and we created all of the, the teams and the infrastructure to create a wonderful business out of handling DHL Worldwide Express in New South Wales and Sydney and Sydney Airport.
Roughly as a snapshot, how many years in were you and when that happened?
Oh, probably about 2.
Okay.
So that was 92. Started the business properly in 93, so it would have been about 95. Yeah, so we went on to do all of their ground handling and expanded actually that business out for them in many of their roles. We had people on the road driving, distributing their freight, sorting their freight in their warehouses, loading and unloading their planes. We'd even represent DHL Worldwide Express for the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. We just had this sort of can-do attitude that if they had a problem, we would provide a solution to them. So we became like another arm to their employment, where we could actually provide skilled labour in their warehouses and out of the tarmac, all sorts of things for them.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. And then I guess how long was that journey with AeroCare altogether?
So I sold that business in 2011. Leading up to selling that business, we had actually developed some really cool tools through the beginning of the internet, if you like,
Mm-hmm.
and the advent of cloud-based computing, we came up with some pretty clever solutions of how to manage people in a decentralized workforce. So we had scaled that business from just in Sydney to actually 14 airports with 1,700 staff around the country. So we had a lot of growth over that term. So one of the tools that we used to grow that business was actually technology. And we built out a system that allowed us to know what our team were doing and who they were doing it with and when they were doing it and how well did they do it, and provide all that, analyze all that information in real time, and even provide a lot of that information back to our airline customers. That was a really fascinating time, because we didn't even realize it at the time that there was this tool called the internet was actually a tool that you could use to create amazing systems and efficiencies in your business. And that tool that we created to manage this decentralized workforce, we actually spun that off and created Deputy out of that learning.
So I guess before actually building the tech, back then it would have been pretty complex and pretty expensive to build something. So what was the thought process around that? Was it starting small and then it grew into something bigger, or was it a moment where the leadership team were like, it's time to invest in tech?
Well, when you're running a business which is predominantly based around texting, phone calls, and faxing, and then all of a sudden you have the capacity to start leaning in on this technology and have insight into what's happening all around Australia in all these different airports, it wasn't really much of a decision. It was a recognition that we need to use this technology, much like modern businesses are looking for AI as an example. You're crazy to ignore these new technologies when they come along. So we just found that we were becoming particularly efficient at what we were doing and a lot safer with what we were doing. And it was a no-brainer. So when we worked out that the more we invested into this technology, the more efficient we became, we just doubled down on it. So it wasn't really a decision-making process. It was just a process.
Yeah, when we talk about startups and the end in mind and exits, how much of that was like part of your thought process for an exit, or having tech and potentially getting a bigger multiple for your exit by having tech? What was your thought process around that?
Well, initially there was certainly no thought process around using the tech as an exit. It was just a tool that we were using to scale the business. And we were quite lucky. A lot of businesses are when they have fantastic opportunity and they have a management team that's able to embrace that luck and that change. Around 2000, when Impulse was acquired by Impulse Airlines, was one of our customers. They were acquired by Qantas, and they went on to become Jetstar. Virgin Blue, they were called when they first came into the country. They came in around a very similar time that Impulse was sort of starting up and then being acquired by Qantas. And at the same time, Ansett folded. So there was a crazy amount of tumultuous time all around that sort of 2000. And then we had the Twin Towers in September 11. It was just a crazy time in aviation. There was so much change. We were able to leverage off a lot of that change and be Johnny on the spot. We still had our positive attitude. The culture that we had in the company was really good, really fantastic. We had an amazing team across the country with a can-do attitude. Ansett fell over. Virgin basically slid into that space. Then you had the Virgin Jetstar war, and we were given an opportunity to scale with Virgin, and that's how we used that opportunity to have our system that we had built to help us scale out the business really rapidly and to meet the needs of Virgin. We scaled more quickly than the airline themselves by their own admission could possibly scale.
Yeah, right.
So because we were experts at ground handling, loading, unloading, baggage and freight, and customer service and check-in and toilet and water, and all the things that fueling, all those things that happen to an airplane on the ground, much like strangely we're sitting in a pit lane. For a pit crew that keeps a motor racing car racing, ground handling staff do the same thing for an airline on the ground. So we would do all those things. It was quite an amazing time for us that we were able to capitalize on all of that change in the industry using the technology that we had built.
And then I guess that exit itself, what was that like? Was that a tap on the shoulder, or was it?
Interestingly, over time, our aviation customers, and we went on to have customers like Singapore Airlines, and Singapore Airlines used us for managing their first class lounge in Sydney, and we were just getting fantastic results for them as an outsourced provider.
Mm-hmm.
So they were coming to us, Virgin was coming to us, and DHL were coming to us. Other operators were saying, these systems that you're using to run your business, can we use that technology ourselves? Can we buy it or rent it? And that's when I started to turn my mind to the fact that the infrastructure that we've been actually building to scale out our business and run these decentralized workforces are so powerful and such a valuable tool. Maybe we could actually spin this off to become its own business. And that's when I really started to turn my mind to it and started thinking about, well, maybe that's what we should do.
So did you make that decision in your head before the exit?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did. When you're scaling a business like AeroCare,
mm-hmm.
it's very dependent on manpower.
Yeah.
When you're ramping up to scale a business proportionally or linearly, you're having as many new full-time employees or employees as the business needs to meet the needs of the customer. But when I started to consider this whole new, I was watching the evolution of technology in real time. It was quite a fascinating time to be in business, that you can actually create a tool, an online tool. We now know all of our apps and all of our technology these days are predominantly based around that, but back then they weren't.
Mm.
But to build a business which is not linear, where you can build it once. I like to refer to it like looking in a mirror.
Mm.
You can look in the mirror millions and millions of times and you don't wear it out.
Mm-hmm.
Same as technology, you can build it once and rent it or sell it millions of times. And that's why technology businesses are so valuable. They're able to be scaled infinitely on a far less requirement on people like a service-based company like AeroCare was.
So when you started to shift your focus or have more of an understanding of what software could do as, software as a service and look to focus on that, what was that journey like? Were you running both businesses in parallel, or did you exit the first one and then start the second one?
Well, I went to my management team and talked about the concept of them actually acquiring the business. It was time for me to step out.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to do something different. One of the analogies that I had when I first started AeroCare was that I felt like I picked up 2 suitcases and I was never able to put them back down again. When you're in aviation, there's a lot of regulation, a lot of burden, a lot of, everything's measured, there's a lot of accountability, it's a lot of stress. It's a 24/7 operation. So it was time for me to sort of relax and move on and do something different. I went to the management team and we collectively brokered a management buyout,
mm-hmm.
which was very successful. That business ended up scaling significantly. There was a couple of acquisitions, both domestically and internationally, and the management team did really well out of that business, and it actually went on to be sold 2 more times since. It's now owned by a multinational, and it's been vertically integrated now as an international brand.
So what was that journey like after that? Did you have any time off? What was that
There
like?
was a small overlap,
mm-hmm.
But I'm no tech guru.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't necessarily heavily involved in the building of the product.
Mm-hmm.
But what we did know is that many of my friends were coming to me and saying, how have you scaled this aviation business, which has obviously become a very powerful entity in that field, whereas I'm in hospitality, or I might be in retail or in services. And what I'm finding is the more that I'm growing my business or scaling my business, the less time I've got and the less margin I'm making. It's just like very hard to make good money out of business these days. When I told them about the tools that we've been developing over time, they said, well, how do I get in on this action? How can I actually, is there some way you can make your tool available to me? So that's when I started to really realize that it's quite amazing that nearly every business, doesn't matter whether it's retail or in health or it might be franchising or services, most businesses use people to build or sell something. They have very similar challenges. And when we started to consider, well, if we were to take out the industry-specific elements of the tool that we had created, so the company was called AeroCare, and the internet, so we called it the AeroNet.
Mm-hmm.
So it was called AeroNet internally, and it went on to become quite famous internally as the AeroNet. Everybody knew what the tool was, the AeroNet. When I was explaining to my friends what we've been using and about the challenges that we were trying to solve for, they said, well, they're exactly the same challenges that I've got in my business. It didn't matter what business they were. They said, please make it available. So that's when I thought, well, this is something which we can actually take to the world. If we take away the aviation specific elements of the product and we make it more agnostic, and we can then sort of package it up in an online solution, and then Deputy was born. The reason it's called Deputy is because, you being the business owner, you're the king of the castle, so to speak, and your 2IC is typically a deputy, and that's why we call it Deputy. We built Deputy and started to ship it to some of our friends, predominantly in hospitality or stand-up workers. Doesn't matter whether they're in retail or in franchising or healthcare or whatever. Hourly paid workers, it's perfect for. And which was pretty much what we were doing at AeroCare. We were providing a service. All those things that we did on the airport, we were gun for hire. We're a services company. We started to sell the product to friends and family, and they loved it and adopted it. And very, very quickly, those people who tend to be in hourly paid workers, they're quite nomadic. They tend to have more than one job, or they move around and they travel, and they started to take Deputy with them and started referring Deputy. And before you knew it, we started to scale quite quickly. We had very, very significant growth in the first few years of just by viral growth, without, just all word of mouth, where young people who were working in hospitality and hourly paid workforce, they actually loved using the product as much as the business owners and managers loved using the product. So we've enjoyed a lot of viral growth, not just here domestically, but internationally.
So I guess there's hurdles and challenges in growing a traditional business, which is what you did. Then what was that like now in a new age software as a service business? Like, what were the challenges like, or what was the difference?
Well, like I referred to before, the scaling a human-powered workforce like AeroCare is very linear. You when you have more work, you have to have more people to help do that work. Whereas when we started to scale the business at Deputy, we recognized very quickly that the business is able to be scaled very dramatically with significantly less front loading of people. So very pleasantly surprised to see not only the revenue, but the users, global users, without needing to continuously employ people linearly like we do with a people-loaded business.
I guess my other question is, sometimes with a traditional business, there might be these growths and you need to do them sustainably, potentially, in line with your customers' growth. What was that like with Deputy when you looked at actually raising capital and potentially, spending that on product features that people didn't even know they needed?
Yeah. One of the things I think we've done a really good job of is asking the right questions and listening to the answers of our customers. And we've had literally thousands of product releases. So for the first 8 or 9 years of the business, I bootstrapped the company. All of the investment was coming from the funds that I personally funded, and we knew that was not indefinitely scalable. But what we knew was we need to be particularly agnostic and listen to the right customers, so that we could provide a solution that catered to most of our customer base. Everybody's got their own needs and their own very specific needs. So we're not for everybody, but we are for a lot of hourly paid workforces. Initially, we probably made some mistakes about going down rabbit holes and making sure we were everything to a small amount of customers rather than most things to most customers.
Yeah, awesome. So I guess for listeners, were there in some cases also bootstrapping? What was that moment where you were like, okay, I feel comfortable bringing other people into the business? You might have already had other shareholders that were through an ESOP or partners, but actual, venture capital or funds.
Yeah. There's a rocky road for everybody who's bootstrapping, right? It's you have to have an undying belief and faith in what your purpose is. One of the benefits that we had was we weren't just a concept, or we had a proof of concept. We actually had a product that worked. We knew that. Knowing that our product worked gave me a lot of confidence that we just got to make sure that we deliver that same experience to others that we had internally at AeroCare. But from a point of view of bootstrapping, it's a risky game, right? Particularly in this day and age where there's so many entrepreneurs, if you like, that believe in what they're doing, but they might not know that somebody might have already been doing working on the same solution that they've been working on. And it's also very hard to protect your IP these days. So we were kind of lucky back then when not many people were around building out products and building out apps and technologies in the cloud. And we're also lucky enough to have my co-founder and I, his name is Sheik. He used to work for me. When I talked to him about what I wanted to do, he was also a very firm believer in what we had achieved, and he wanted to come along on the journey. We just had an undying belief in the solution that we were going to create for the world.
If we fast forward to that actual cap raise, was that a moment where you celebrated? It was one of the largest, if not the largest, cap raises in Australia at the time.
Yeah, our Series A was a very significant milestone for us because not only were we able to really unleash the beast and start to really double down on all the learnings that we had with all the feedback that we had from our was it many hundreds or thousands of new customers at the time, but we also were able to bring our OpenView partners on board who brought a lot of skills with them. Their team were fantastic in advice and with pricing and introductions and just mentoring. They'd done a lot of business mentoring before and partnerships before, so we're very proud to still have them with us today. That was our Series A, $25 million US, and then a couple of years later we raised at the time Australia's largest Series B, which is 81 million US. So that was another very, very proud moment where IVP came on board with another couple of fantastic partners as well. So it was a demonstration that sophisticated investors believed in what we were doing, could see that we were on the right path, and it basically just reinforced that we were on the road to success.
So I guess you mentioned earlier that potentially you were an early adopter of this type of tech, and there may not have been other competitors. For those that are, building a company now, and there are potentially other competitors, what's your thoughts on that? How important, did you watch competitors even growing the business? Was there copycats?
Yeah, we unfortunately do have a lot of copycats out there now. We had first mover advantage. We've got a very good reputation, and we one of the things that we did do, as I said before, is we listened carefully to what our customers wanted, and we delivered. I actually use the analogy a lot. I've done a lot of motorsport myself, and one of the things that I still use the analogy today is, and you'd be aware of this, Ken, being a motor racer yourself, is that you're better off looking through your windscreen than looking at your mirrors. If you're really focused on the job in front of you, which is through your windscreen, as opposed to what's happening behind you in your mirrors, that's when you make the mistakes. We've been very aware of that there's been a lot of copycats out there. There's a lot of products out there that look just like Deputy these days. That's okay, but when you put so much of your life's work and passion, enthusiasm, and investment into building a product, and somebody comes along and we can call copy, but steal, if you like, that does hurt. And particularly when from time to time, some of these people that come along and steal some of your IP steal your customer as well. But what we're finding is that from time to time, they might entice some of our customers to go away, but it does tend to be short term when they realize that it's pretty shallow. The image of the copy doesn't have much depth to it, and the product underneath is nowhere near as sound. Back to your question though, what do you do about it? And from a point of view of self-belief, I think it's like anything. You just have to, if you decide that you're going to go down that path, and you're just going to stick to it. You have to push. You have to continue to fight, no matter what happens. Keep your eye on the prize and just keep fighting for it.
Yeah, there's a statistic I read from Y Combinator, which was 9 out of 10 startups fail from implosion, not from competition. So it's interesting. But how did you, raising that much capital? Surely there's a lot of turbulence. How did you not implode? How did you navigate through that process?
It's very easy to get out of control, and you're right. A lot of startups and a lot of companies, when they have a big fat bank balance, it's easy to get out of hand, and there's some very, very high profile accounts of that type of thing happening. But we're also blessed to have a fantastic board. We've got some very wise people that are on our board, and it's just a matter of ensuring that we listen to the board. We keep our senses about us. We keep trying to hire the best people that we can find. and we just have we're on a journey of continuous improvement, staying humble, not getting ahead of ourselves, and keeping our sense of integrity. We've had relatively modest offices and relatively modest everything that we do where we can do it, because it's a battleground and you need to be prepared for the next battle.
I guess if we fast forward now, so you own 2 racetracks. So there's Pheasant Wood and One Raceway. So when did you acquire Pheasant Wood, and what's that story? And then we'll get to One Raceway.
Well, as a motorsport person, it's all right to have a car, but not many people can. I mean, plenty of people got race cars, right?
Yep.
But not many people have got racetracks. And I used to stand in this pit lane here at what was called Wakefield Park, and I remember one of these refueling posts here. I remember leaning on them about 10 years ago, just thinking, wow, somebody owns this place. To me, it was like Disneyland, but it's just completely unachievable to own something like this. Like, there's 14 full-time car motor racing circuits in the country. Just a pipe dream, really. But not far from here, at Marulan, about half an hour back towards Sydney, there's a little motorsport circuit there called the Marula Driver Training Centre. And I got invited there with a bunch of mates one day to just go and have a track day. And I turned up and I was having a fantastic time. And to me, it was just quite a symbol of fun and excitement to have a small little motorsport circuit like that. And I looked at it and thought, wow, with a bit of money, this place could be something quite spectacular. And Gary, the owner, was there on that occasion. And I just happened to say to him, look, if ever you decide that you want to bow out of this place, I'll just hand him my business card and said, just give me a call. So a couple of years later, the phone rang one night and he said, it's Gary, if you're still interested in acquiring the circuit, let's come and have a chat. So I drove down there and we had a bit of a negotiation, and sure enough, I ended up acquiring it off Gary. There was a lot of work that needed to be done, and there was a lot of investment to bring it up to, a reasonable standard. And I've got quite an eye for detail. So one thing led to another, and ended up completely restructuring and rebuilding the whole thing, reshaping the circuit, and turned it into what is now called Pheasant Wood. And Pheasant Wood, by the way, is named after the cemetery where my great-grandfather is buried in the north of France, who was killed as a 21-year-old soldier back in the First World War on the first day of battle. So as a shrine, if you like, we called the circuit Pheasant Wood.
So when was that? When
that
did
was
you
in 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, and we reopened in 2018.
Any rebuild like that would be even a massive undertaking. Why do it again?
Well, like I said, I love this place. One of the quotes that I've been quoted to have said is that some of the best days of my life have been spent here.
Yeah, well,
at this place. The local Chamber of Commerce manager, the director of the Chamber of Commerce, called me up a couple of years ago and said, look, you know all about the fact that Wakefield Park has been closed down. I said, yeah, I'm very aware of it. I was here on the second last day or the third last day of operations before the gates were shut due to massive neighbourhood disruptions, and there was disputes with the council. There was land and environment court matter. It all became too hard for the previous owners, and they literally shut the business and closed the gates and sacked all the people. And that was when it was realised that this particular facility has got huge economic benefit to Goulburn region, but also to New South Wales. And the director of the Chamber of Commerce and the local member of Parliament actually jumped on a joint call and asked me if it would be at all possible to come to the table and work out a way that we might be able to do something by way of reopening the circuit. One of the major issues was the culture and the management style of how the circuit was managed and run before, and the relationship that they had with the neighbours. So when I sat down with the neighbours, I worked out that there probably was a way forward, and that there was a lot of promises and commitments that had been made and broken over many, many years. The circuit had been operating for about 29 years when I acquired it. Through a lot of discussions with the neighbours, with the Chamber of Commerce, with the local member, and particularly with the neighbours in the council, we worked out a way forward, and that was when I decided to go again, roll up the sleeves, bring my brothers along for the journey, and we rebuilt this place. When we rebuilt it, it came with a lot of promises and commitments of which we're honouring, which is huge big noise walls, which we've built, a revised calendar or schedule with a lot of reduced operations, and mainly the main thing is the commitment that we will monitor and manage the noise levels from cars. Most people understand that we have to be stringent on the noise controls, and now we're reopened again, which is very unusual. I don't think there's been a case of motorsport facilities in this country being closed down and reopening again. They all stay sharp. There used to be about 5 or 6 motor racing circuits in New South Wales, and now there's 2 left, including this one and Sydney Motorsport Park, plus Pheasant circuit up the road, which is, it's only 1.6 kilometres long, so it's not really on the schedule of one of the full-time racing circuits. But based on feedback that we had from some of the neighbours, that there was a genuine desire to actually change the name of the circuit. When we started to think about, well, what would be a great name for the circuit, and what we wanted to try and achieve was unity and togetherness in the community, where it was a fractured relation. We wanted to bring everything back together as one, so we just called it One. We've redesigned it, reimagined it, rebuilt it, made it a lot safer, and we did something which was, we think, a world first, where it's now actually a full-time One Raceway with which it's got 2. We can run both clockwise and anti-clockwise. So we've got 2 circuits here at the One Raceway.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun actually taking the Shelley circuit today.
Yeah.
So I think that was definitely an Easter egg, finding out the news that you had made it 2-way and today actually having a go of it. Yeah, I was really impressed.
I saw you out there having a good time. It's intriguing to drive around in what we call the Wakefield circuit, which is homage to what it used to be called, the Wakefield Park Raceway. Then we also have what we call the Shelley circuit. So we went out to our followers on Facebook and social media and said, what should we call it? And the overwhelming response was, why don't you just call it after your name? Your family is the family that rebuilt it and repurposed it and reimagined it. So just call it. So why not? On NatSoft, which is the system that motor racers in Australia use to track their timing, they can come to One Raceway and see their timing on the Wakefield circuit or the Shelley circuit, depending on which way the event ran on the weekend.
So I know, it's a racetrack, there's earth moving, we came probably 12, 18 months ago, and seeing the sheer volume of what needed to happen is pretty extraordinary. It's not just you come here and it's finished or it's done. There's a lot of work involved.
Yep.
Did you ever feel like, what have I done?
Yeah, still do. It's more of a passion project than a great business idea, but I'm also a very big believer in energy, like the amount of positive energy this place has from thousands of people. It means to me that it's for the right reasons. One day, somebody will probably want this place more than me, and that might mean that it was a good business decision to invest so much into it, not just financially, but the amount of time that my brothers and I and our team here have invested in rebuilding this place. We moved tens of millions of tons of dirt. We've pulled everything apart, pulled it all apart, and put it all back together again. We've put extended the pit lane. We've put walkways and thousands of tons of concrete and steel and kilometres of pits and pipes and drains and fibre network. So we've got the light panels all around the circuit now. So we have a much safer circuit. We've got asphalt runoff everywhere rather than kitty litter. We've had it quantified. It's the safest circuit now in the country. There's virtually nothing you can hit here. It's a really, really safe circuit for everybody from novice learners right through to professional drivers. Love racing here. It's a good, fun place to be.
So we met probably 15 years ago in the Radicals.
We did.
And, being in the tech space, I overlapped with Jake Shelley. He started Jiffy. So it's been a bit of a collaboration and journey together, which has been really awesome. And then coming together to really look at not just One Raceway, but One Racer. So going from looking at potentially building a website to actually going, how can I scale my efforts again?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It's quite amazing. There's not a lot of revenue in a racetrack, believe it or not. The costs are significant. Insurances are very significant. And one of the things that we are trying to do is minimize our costs, and administration staff are expensive when there's quite a high dependence for a very short amount of time on a race meeting. It just creates a confusion, and it doesn't create for a seamless experience for the racer as well. When you turn up to a racing event, there's a lot of paperwork and documentation and time spent standing in queues, whether they be for signing on, signing disclaimers and liability waivers and reading subregs and sitting in drivers' briefings and having all of your various scrutineering done. It's all, there's a lot of administration. So we thought about it. You mentioned Jake. Jake used to work for Deputy for about 10 or 11 years and became very, very skilled at a whole bunch of things. Him and a lot of the team that he worked with went out on their own and formed a team called Jiffy, solving tech headaches in a jiffy. I said to Jake, we've got to come up with a better way that we can, solve for this administration problem and the burden of going to a racetrack and spend the first half of your first day standing in queues. We've both done a lot of racing together. In fact, we've had a lot of success racing as a father and son team here. So we use that knowledge about motorsport to partner with you guys at Devika to build out the OneRacer app. And what we want to do is try and minimize not only the cost for us as a motorsport entity, but also to minimize the amount of energy that it takes for a racer to come and enjoy their motorsport. So a lot of the things that they would come and do on the Friday morning or the Saturday morning of a race event can now be done in the comfort of their own armchair in front of the TV and signing up their teams and their mechanics or their pit crew or registering their vehicles or completing all their documentation that I referred to earlier, the administrative things, and I'll turn up and flash a QR code and we'll say, good, go racing. So we think that is a scalable product as well. So not only will we get the benefit out of it here, but we should be able to monetize that with other events around the country and potentially internationally. We couldn't find anybody who's done it. We couldn't find anybody who's done it well. There's been a couple of lightweight versions of some sort of online solutions, but nothing like the way we're designing it. So yeah, we're kind of pretty excited that we can take this to cycling events or running events, or it might be rallies or motorsport, obviously, but it might be marathons. People can use the OneRacer app to go and sign on and sign your waivers and pay your membership fees and buy your things, whatever that thing is, whether it be a transponder for a race car or it might be a transponder to strap onto your feet for a marathon. There's a lot of synergies depending on, just because it's racing doesn't mean it has to have an engine. Mm-hmm. We're pretty excited about partnering with you guys at Devika we've been through a lot of iterations of it. We've been doing a lot of testing, and I think it's either today or tomorrow we should be able to launch it, which is pretty good timing.
Yeah, we used it today, which was really exciting. Okay. And I think that's one of those, pinch me moments as well, seeing what you've done with the track, having a vision to digitize that process. I know how many hurdles there are, being in race car driving, and it can be very stressful even coming to a track and having the driver's briefings and the scrutineering. So being able to, prepare for that the night before and be very prepared, I think is,
or days and weeks out.
Exactly. Yeah.
And once we've got that data as well, we can use that to communicate with our customer base, communicate with upcoming events, or if there's any changes or weather or whatever those things that we might want to communicate with them. We'll have that database of our customers, and there's also that engagement that engagement piece, which is going to be, we think, very valuable to have with them as well.
So you've obviously built a really successful tech business before. So I guess the question is, why us? Why did you think we were the right fit to help you bring it to life?
Well, I have a lot of faith and trust in Jake's judgment as well, and he's worked with you guys as well on several different projects. And when I sat down and spoke with Jake about, what should we do? How do we go forward? And, you guys just came highly recommended, and you guys and your team have got that can-do attitude, same as what,
can-do attitude.
A can-do attitude. You can keep that. Can.do. But, it's very important. If you're not agile these days, you just don't count. Everybody needs to be able to move in real time and keep up with the needs of their clients and their clients' clients. And you guys have demonstrated that you're prepared to listen to what we need, and you've also got a motorsport background, so you understand the needs of a tool like this, or the benefits of a tool like this. And we're super excited. We can't wait to get it launched and get the world talking about it.
Yeah, definitely super excited. You're definitely, an idol for myself and the rest of the team.
Thank
It's,
you.
seeing what you've done in business and multiple times over and being so close working over the last 18 months has really been an honor and a pleasure for us. And we're really excited to see where this product can go and even the racetrack and all that kind of jazz. So I guess, yeah, it's a really big thank you from me. Just to close off the podcast, for someone looking to build a tech business in today's landscape, do you have any feedback or any words of wisdom for them?
Just make sure you do your due diligence. You make sure you understand what you're getting involved with, because there have been literally 50 occasions where people, just because of, I guess, my profile, people come to me and say, I've got this really good idea for an app.
Mm.
It doesn't mean because you've got an idea for an app means that you're going to go out and make millions of dollars out of it. And you need to have a lot of drive, determination, the capacity to fund this app. You need to understand what the market is for that app, and you do plenty of competitor analysis. See, there's nothing out there that's already been done before. If all those boxes are checked and you have the capacity, you just have to be prepared to be a fighter. That have that entrepreneurial spirit of not letting anybody take it away from you, and you just got to keep pushing, because there are a lot more challenges than what might meet the eye when you want to go and build the app. It's a long road, and I guess if you don't have those skills internally, don't try and think you're going to build them overnight. Maybe it's time to find a partner like Devika who's come along and do that due diligence with you and see if it is actually a tool that probably does deserve to be built, and if it can be built out in a cost-effective way that you're actually going to get a good return on it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And one last thing, we have a helmet for you to sign for our new office.
I like it.
As a token of the project. So
very good. Sign the helmet, eh?
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you so much.